Hello, good morning, and welcome to the Dailies on Network Television, where we look at some of the papers, looking at the happenings. Quite a number of things are happening, talking about subscribers are actually in the various telecommunication outlets, looking at actually the fact that their line has been blocked, and we're seeing that the Nigerian Communication Commission have actually directed that this line should be unblocked so that people can actually get to access their SIM cards properly. As well, we are seeing that the queues are actually becoming longer concerning the issue of wealth scarcity, and then all of this is actually giving the government a cause to concern, as it's giving them an idea of what it will look like during the mass protests. I am Sada Elisha Dasham. Do remember you can drop your comment and your views on Facebook and on YouTube. I'll be doing the program alongside Rachel Tansey. Good morning.
Morning, Sada.
All right, we shall move straight into the papers, starting with the Daily Times newspaper.
On the Daily Times newspaper, CGN Ariola bows out of Supreme Court August 22nd. The big story on the paper: we need dialogue, not protest. A statement from the federal government says there's likelihood the protest may be hijacked by unscrupulous elements, may turn violent. IGP bows to pressure, orders DIGs, CPs to protect protesters nationwide. Tinubu signs new minimum wage bill into law, directs NNPCL to sell crude oil to Dangote refinery in Naira. President's concern for workers demonstrated by his support for new minimum wage. A statement from the Senate President Akpabio. Federal government plans to digitalize 80% of government activities by 2025. Court orders INEC not to release voter register to KWSIEC for September 21st LG polls. Military revises condition of service to enhance efficiency. A report from the Defense Headquarters. Prioritize existing airport infrastructure, economic stimulus to revive aviation sector, and advice from an expert. You can find details on page 5, and that's all the news on the Daily Times newspaper.
On Daily News Hub newspaper, Tinubu signed 70,000 naira new minimum wage into law. And the big story, hashtag end bad governance. IGP makes U-turn, orders police protection for protesters. Directs senior police officers to comply with group lawyers' requests as hunger protest begins in Niger State. Placard bearing youth storm street, denounce government. More detail can be found in the paper. Protesters have no right to destabilize Nigeria, Akpabio is warning. ADC vows to join nationwide hunger protests, and we have the NCC orders telecoms to immediately reactivate all block lines. Hashtag end bad governance. Soldiers barricade Major Abuja Road 72 hours to hunger protest. Conduct stop and search. More detail in the paper. Tell your father Nigerians are suffering, very dark man tells Tinubu's daughter. We recall yesterday she was telling Nigerians not to protest, and we're seeing that very dark man is telling her to go back and tell her father that Nigerians are suffering. Nigeria getting better under Tinubu. Protest will worsen economy coming from Tombolo. JAM directs daily part-time programs illegal. You can find that in the paper. Protests need less. We are already addressing your demands. Federal government tell Nigerians. And downside, sell crude to Dangote refinery in Naira. Tinubu orders NNPC. And we have the picture story here where we can see President Bola Ahmed Tinubu together with the Senate President while he was signing the new national minimum wage into law at the Council Chamber of the Presidential Villa Abuja on Monday. And that's all on Daily News Hub newspaper.
Oil to Dangote and others in Naira. You can start with the details on the front page. We have a first half report for the year 2024. Customs surpasses revenue target, generates 2.74 trillion naira. Supreme Court to hold valedictory session August 22nd as CJN Ariola retires. Tinubu means, well, let's give him time to rescue Nigeria, Tunji Ojo is saying. Enugu targets 100 billion naira livestock production processing potential. You can find details on page 5. On Edo Guba with infrastructure, this is an assurance from INEC. The big story on the paper, IGP orders police protection for protesters as Senate calls for emergency session tomorrow. You can find details on page 2, 3, 4, 8, 26, and 30. Still on the paper, G60 reps World Congress Rivers a joke by Wike's group. An influx of arms machineries fueling terrorism in the Northwest. This is coming from governors. Tinubu signs new minimum wage bill into law. Details can be found on page 2 and 5. NIN SIM verification. NCC orders immediate reconnection of deactivated lines. You can find details on page 4. And I know we have a study that says consuming dried fruit 190 billion naira right in them at the signing ceremony of over 5 billion ordinary shares. And that's all the news on New Telegraph newspaper.
On the Guardian newspaper, refiners get crook for Naira deal amid fuel scarcity and same blockade fury, where we can see the picture story showing us some of the fuel queues at filling station, rowdy session at telecommunications subscribing offices in Lagos, Abuja, Oyo, among others yesterday. So you can see a cross section showing you what actually is happening. Organized CSOs, no amount of threat can stop nationwide protests. New page, you can find that on page 3. APC appeals for patience over temporary hardship. Nigerians can now buy a bag of rice at 40,000 naira, no need for protests, says the federal government. Federal government put VCs on red alert over planned protests. You can find that in the paper. Also coming for operational private sector, tax Tinubu on promises as 70,000 naira minimum wage becomes law. 19 parties reject local government electoral commission once the state and independent electoral commission scrapped. You can find that on page 5. Subscribers get reprieve as NCC orders reactivation of line. That's on business. You can find on page 29. And that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
On Blueprint newspaper, the big story, August protest. IGP deploys DIGs, AIGs, CPs nationwide. NSCDC 30,000 personnel. 36 APC state chairmen mobilized counter-protest as LGs and wards. Grievances being addressed, action no longer necessary. A statement from the federal government. You can start with the details on the front page and continue on page 8. Tinubu signs 70,000 naira minimum wage bill into law. National Assembly meets Wednesday. Sunday, Igboho distances self from faceless protesters. On business, Zenith Bank finalizes plan for 290 billion naira rights issue and public offer. On sports, the Tigers beat Australia in Olympics upset. You can find details on page 32. Why we didn't share federal government's 90 billion naira intervention fund to all pilgrims. This is NACAN explaining themselves concerning the 90 billion naira funds they got from the federal government for pilgrims. You can start with the details on the front page. Federal government okay sales of crude oil to Dangote orders in Naira saves $7.32 billion annually. ACF hails Tinubu loots $20 billion refinery. NCC directs telcos to reactivate bad lines. Federal government okays 1.44 trillion naira road contracts nationwide. FCT IRS generates 126.54 billion naira in 6 months. The report, you can find details on page 14. Edo/Ondo Guba, INEC bars LPs Abure from meeting threats over insecurity. You can find details on page 6, and that's all the news on Blueprint newspaper.
On the leadership newspaper, Yoruba Nation not part of planned protests, say Ibuhu. You can find that on page 16. And on Edo Ondo polls, INEC raises security concern. You can find out on page 14. And was trending on the paper, federal government to restock food reserves, stabilize prices. On numbers, 59 electricity workers die in 6 months. More can be found on page 2. Federal government orders sale of crude oil to Dangote refinery and others in Naira. And that happened yesterday when the president approved a new directive to promote crude oil trade using the local currency. More detail can be found on page 7. Tinubu signed new minimum wage into law. And we are seeing 2 days to go talking about a protest. More groups back out of the planned hunger protest. Its plot to topple Tinubu's government, APC alleges. National Assembly holds emergency session tomorrow. And then Abuja traders insist on no protest, residents stockpile food. IGP orders protection of protesters. You can find that on page 4. Zenith Bank finalized plan for 290 billion naira right issue public offer. Nidcon gives breakdown of 90 billion naira hatch subsidy. Telcos reactivate block phone lines and motorists lament as fuel queue spread. You can read detail of that on page 21, and that's all on Leadership newspaper.
On Vanguard newspaper, Zenith Bank set to raise 290 billion naira capital through rights issue and public offer. Barring of phone lines heightens tension amid protest scare. NCC orders immediate reactivation of blocked lines. Gunmen abduct monarch's son, 5 others kill customs officer in Sokoto and Kebbi. You can find details of this story on page 6. Tinubu directs NNPCL to sell crude to Dangote and others in Naira. The big story on Vanguard: hardship. Nigerians have right to peaceful protest. A statement from the presidency. The writer says as pro-government rallies rock Nigeria, federal government bids to placate youths to avert protests. IGP summons Ade Burua. Right to peaceful protest, pillar of democratic governance. 36 CSO is saying that no going back on Eagle Square usage. Protest campaigner tackles Wike. Federal government directs varsity VCs to secure staff, students' property. NBA urges dialogue once against anarchy. Losers in 2023 polls behind planned protest. A statement from Senate President Akpabio. Wike mobilizes stakeholders against protests in Abuja. Don't turn Southwest to theater of war. Hardship will soon give way. This is coming from the Southwest APC leaders. APC to organize counter rallies says it won't allow election losers topple Tinubu. Tinubu signs 70,000 naira minimum wage bill into law. You can find details of the big story on page 5 and its writers on page 40. Still on Vanguard newspaper, it's time to deal with criminality, restore peace in the Northwest. A statement from Governor Sani. Still on hardship, Iboho moves against nationwide protest. A column on page 46 for sports, where we see the Tigers upset Australia in Paris Olympic basketball. And that's all the news on Vanguard newspaper.
Well, I'm happy that I'm loving the way the government is taking a different tone. I'm loving the way the IGP have decided to stop threatening youth and rather direct all of his officers to actually protect Nigerians.
Yeah.
And as well, I'm just wondering what the APC are planning to do by organizing a counter rally, saying they won't allow election losers to topple Tinubu. I believe that this has more to do. I mean, it has nothing totally to do with losing the election.
It's more than that, Sally.
It's more than that.
Yes.
People are hungry, so what does that have to do with losing of election? Whether or not people lose election, I mean, it doesn't tell the fact that presently Nigerians are going through a lot of hardship.
Doesn't.
So I'm just wondering. I'm trying to wrap my head around what does the counter rally has to do. Is it the rally we saw the women on one of the papers where they're saying say no to protests in various states? I mean, let Nigerians speak for themselves. I don't think Nigerians need a body of women to come out and tell them what and what not to do. We are in a democratic dispensation. I have the right just alone to go to the street and say, this is my plight. And if the government feel that what Stella is saying is wrong, then I'll be called to, why are you holding this placard? And then I go further to explain myself. Maybe I feel that I'm not well taken care of, or maybe I feel that my right has been violated. So I believe that let us operate like we really are operating under democracy, and not like we're in a military regime whereby you're being dictated what to do and what
Or
not to
not
do.
to do.
But then here, since we're seeing the presidents are saying Nigerians have the right to a peaceful protest, and
Then
then we're
allow
seeing that
them.
a body of people are coming out to say no. So I'm beginning to wonder, is that we having a house that is divided, or what really is going on concerning this protest?
If the presidency is agreeing that Nigerians have the right to a peaceful protest, then allow Nigerians have a peaceful protest. Now more than ever, the way that the government have been dealing with the issue of these protests have been very disappointing, Selem. From day one, the manipulation, the blackmail, the inciting fear, and everything, the oppression have been very disappointing up till today. You can't help but wonder that you are allowing a protest against protest, and it doesn't make sense, because what is the rationale, what is the sense behind allowing women to go out on the street holding placards showing their different states? We saw that on the previous paper. And the government knows that this looks very staged, right? Because I don't think anybody, we've never seen where anybody goes out on a protest to stop a protest. You don't want a protest. You are afraid of a protest. So how comes you are allowing a protest to stop a protest from taking place? Is it that this protest too can't be hijacked by hoodlums? It is a protest. So if a protest is dangerous, if protests by nature are dangerous and can always be hijacked by hoodlums and people will be killed, then why are you allowing these protests in the first place? And the word for this is the government is being, I mean, let me not use the word I want to use, but then very disappointing in the way that they have been handling the issues in this country. So far, so good. We can talk about the political issues. We can talk about the economic decisions and policies. And now, even with the way you're handling the plea of the people and all of that is not encouraging at all. And we just can't help but wonder whether or not we have a government that truly cares and we will grow. Signing the 70,000 naira minimum wage bill, you cannot use that to silence Nigerian, because you know what? We are deserving of the minimum wage.
Or
you
more.
can't, or more. You can't use what is our right as a means for bargain. It's not done anywhere. You can't use my salary to bargain with me concerning what I should do or not. I have worked for it. It's not free money. You're not dashing me. It's not a palliative. It is what I have worked and earned for. So signing this bill is going to do little or nothing. And we saw on one of the paper where the federal government is saying we should, the protest is not necessary. A bag of rice is now 40,000 naira. Where are those bag of rice? Because I don't know if the federal government's market is different from our own market, but obviously it also proves how out of touch the government is in reality with what Nigerians are facing. At this point, I just wish the government would stop trying in whatever they are doing, because it is proven to fail. It will continue to backfire on them, because they need to understand that no matter how they try to twist the situation, it doesn't change the fact that the major reason behind this protest is the hardship. No matter how you try to politicize it, it is a multi-party system. And every other person, we are looking at over 50 parties with a population of over 200 million people. So what? Can every party become a president? I don't know where you try to politicize it and say they try to topple the government. Can every party become president? Can every civilian, can every Nigerian become president? We talked about this over and over. A farmer don't want to become a president. He just wants to be able to access his farm. When we are out there, when parents are out there on that street, it's because they need better education. It's it just is absurd on a lot of levels, seeing the allegations that the federal government are pointing out there. Is there need for concerns? Yes. There is no denying that fact that there is a need for concern. But the more the government opens their mouth and talk concerning this protest and devise means left, right, center, it just has a way of disappointing Nigerians more and more, because they know it, and the fact is there that Nigerians have genuine concrete reason other than wanting to topple the government to take on the street.
But the question I believe Nigerians would love to ask is that why did the government wait for the threats coming from Nigerians that we want to go on a protest before they begin to make moves on doing certain things? Just like you said, we saw in the Guardian newspaper particularly where they said no need for you to come out. I mean, a bag of rice is 40,000 naira. Why didn't you make this 40,000 naira from the beginning of the year? Why did you wait for a protest? So I'm trying to say that you always need a threat before you do the right thing. And we've seen that over there, that has been the method for the government to work. It's either as is going on, it's threatening to go on a strike. That is when we hear that there's negotiation. Labour want to go on strike. That is when we saw the back and forth concerning new minimum wage. It's not only sensible that you do the right thing. Do you have to wait for a push coming from the people before you know that, okay, well, this is the reason why I am a president, I should do this? And just like we said, sometimes when we hear leaders talking, we just cannot help but wonder, like the likes of our Senate president. I've been wondering, why do we have a Pabio saying certain things all the time?
Just wrap your head around.
Honestly, I'm disappointed on a very, very, I'm wondering, why does he keep speaking in that manner? So I'm just hoping that, just like you said, sometimes it seems they are no longer in touch with reality. That's why they make certain comments. But we hope that they come back to what is really happening and do the right thing. Well, I think that's all on the Vanguard. Let's take a look at this day newspaper then. Zenith Bank set to commence 290 billion naira capital raising through right issue and public offer. You can read that on the front page and continue on page 9. NCC orders immediate reactivation of lines barred by telcos. Detail on page 9 as well. 48 hours to go, countrywide intervention against protests, Mount Youth adamant, and we have some riders under the story. Tinubu directs NNPCL to commence crude oil sale to Dangote and others in Naira, and we see directive will reduce Nigerians' FX burden, save $732 billion annually, says the FRS boss. As well, government will ensure full implementation of the new minimum wage, coming from the Minister of Labour State, that you can see in the paper. President already protesting on behalf of youth, Idris declares. And then FEC case agreement on fugitive repatriation prisoner swap with Spain. You can find that on page 3. We have the picture story where we see Zenith Bank capital raising signing ceremony. Downside of the paper, Tinubu signed 70,000 naira minimum wage into law amid unease over planned protest. Detail on page 5. And that's all on this day newspaper.
On Daily Sun newspaper, Igbo youths de-associate selves from planned protest, demand Kanu's release. The big story, nationwide protest, National Assembly summons emergency meeting. Details can be found on page 6. Tinubu signed 70,000 naira minimum wage bill into law. Akpabio says it's for whole nation. In Edo, 3 parties yet to submit names of polling agents, 24 hours to deadline. This is a report from INEC. You can find details on page 27. On 2024 Hajj, 30 Nigerians died in Saudi Arabia. How federal government's 90 billion naira intervention fund was disbursed by NACON. Details can be found on page 27. NCC orders immediate reactivation of lines affected by NIN and SIM verification issues. FEC approves sale of crude oil to Dangote and others in Naira. Says it will reduce pressure on foreign exchange. Custom declares 2.74 trillion naira First half revenue surpasses target. Details can be found on page 21. And we have a picture story still on Zenith Bank showing executives of Zenith Bank and that of other banks, Stanbic, IBTC, and that's all the news on Daily Sun newspaper.
Right before we continue further with the paper review, let's take a break to let you just, go through some of the stories and drop your comment on what you feel about any of it. And when we come back, we will continue the paper review. Please stay tuned with us.
Make your everyday informative, make your everyday count. Know your world, daily affairs, national and international, with authentic news events as they unfold on Global News and Zuma Nigeria, Monday to Friday at 1 p.m.
Welcome back. It's still the Dailies. We have been looking at a number of stories. The president have signed a new minimum wage into law, and the Senate president is saying it's for the whole country. So that is to say that every organization, institution should do well to pay their staff from 70,000 and above. We're seeing that even domestic staff are actually to be paid that amount as well. We're seeing various moves coming from the government to be able to avert the coming protest that is to take place in the next roughly 48 hours or more. We're seeing various moves. We're seeing bodies coming out saying they will still protest. We're seeing the presidency saying Nigerians have the right to protest, as well as we're seeing even some APC coming out to say that this is a plan or a move coming from losers during the 2023 election. So we would love to hear your own views. What do you feel about the coming protest? Should Nigerians come out or not? What is the right way forward to address such issue as this? We would really love to hear from you. I still have Rachel with me. Thank you so much,
You're
Rachel.
welcome, Sally.
All right, let's continue with the paper review. Looking at the Punch newspaper. Labour excited as Tinubu signed 70,000 naira minimum wage into law. President orders Naira crook sale. Marketers project price crash. You can find that in the paper. Zenith Bank to raise 290 billion naira fresh capital. And the big story, security agency begins massive soldiers and police deployments. And we have the Nigerian police force places operative on red alert. And we have the NCOS 45 custodial centers. And we have the NSCDC deployed 30,000 personnel. All of these towards the protest. You can find that in the paper. Tinubu means well, let's give him time to rescue Nigeria, coming from Tunji Ojo, that's the Minister of Interior. You can do well to read detail of that. And on NIN linkage, NCC orders SIM restoration as angry subscribers protest. Kiyamo directs suspension of NIMA's 800% charge hike. And as well, we have PSC invite 10,000 new constable for training August. 32 arrested for attacking federal government inspection team. And we have Abuja politicians fueling banditry, says Benue governor. You can find more detail on page 8 and 9. And that's all on the Punch newspaper.
On Nigerian Tribune, Tinubu signs 70,000 naira minimum wage bill into law. Federal government approves crude oil sale in Naira to Dangote to save $7.9 billion annually from fuel imports. The big story on the paper, planned protest, National Assembly to hold emergency session tomorrow. Nigeria can't afford violent protests now, a statement from IGP. NSCDC deploys 30,000 personnel nationwide. NCAA moves to avert flight disruptions, youth stage protests in Suleja. APC state chairman plan counter rally in 36 states and the FCT. Tinubu Northern Magician needs time to solve economic issues, a statement from the Interior Minister. You can find details on page 2. Zenith Bank set to raise 290 billion naira capital through rights issues and public offer, where we have a picture story showing the executives at the meeting. 19 million adolescent girl face intimate partner violence before age 20, a report from the World Health Organization. NTC orders immediate reactivation of all blocked lines as subscribers beseech MTN offices. FEC OK's 1.44 trillion naira road contracts. Ore Ondo, Akure, Abdupani, Itu among those approved. Details can be found on page 4. Federal government begins sales of 50 kg rice for 40,000 naira. Church of Nigeria condemns England's approval of same-sex marriage liturgy. Details can be found on page 14, and that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
On the Nation newspaper, NCC direct telcos to restore bird lines. 10,000 police recruits begin training August 10. Federal government okay sale of crude to Dangote and others in Naira. As well, we have law compels all employers to pay 70,000 Naira minimum wage. President signed the bill. TUC calls for just and consequences for those who won't pay. Tight security in state, FCT over planned protests. And then downside we have Igbo who slam faceless protesters plotting to destabilize the government. Detail in the paper. CNG Ariwola to bows out August 22nd. And then we have 30 Nigerian pilgrims died during Hajj. You can find that on page 4, and that's all on the Nation newspaper.
On Nigerian News Direct, SIM linkage, NCC orders reactivation of blocked lines, urges Nigerians to take linkage seriously. FEC approves 57 billion naira for rehabilitation of Abeokuta Iboro Laro Road. Access Bank bags double honor at Euromoney Awards for ESG. Fidelity Bank shareholders approve absorption of excess funds from public offer exercise. On recapitalization, Zenith Bank to raise 290 billion naira via public offer and rights issue. FEC orders NNPC to sell crude to Dangote, other refineries in Naira as Ipman kicks. The big story on the paper, Senate to pass additional 6.2 trillion naira to fund new minimum wage. The writer says, as Tinubu signs 70,000 naira minimum wage bill into law, ends months of deliberation with labor. Details can be found on page 2. Hunger protests unnecessary as food availability, student loan initiatives underway. Federal government appeals, and that's all the news on Nigerian News Direct.
On First News newspaper, Tinubu signed 70,000 naira new minimum wage into law. Nigerians protest SIM blockage. NCC orders immediate reactivation. Force PRO blames society for police corruption, ignites firestorm on X. You can find that in the paper. Gunmen kidnap Sokoto monarch's son, demand 1 billion naira ransom. Well, this is another reason to protest so that Nigerians will be safe. I hope that the federal government is really looking at all of this happening. Protesters block major road leading to Abuja ahead set date, and this is happening right now in Suleja, Niger State. Nationwide tension escalate as hunger protests loom. No threat gimmicks will stop us, activists declare. Soldiers block major Abuja road, flood Enugu airport tragedy points. NSCDC deploy 30,000 personnel nationwide. IGP direct police protection for protesters. Minister urges students to remain on campus. US, UK, Canada issue security alert to citizens. As well, we see Tinubu direct NNPCL to sell crude in Naira to Dangote refinery and others. We still have the picture story. President Bola Tinubu, joined by the leadership of the National Assembly, signed the 2024 National Minimum Wage Amendment Bill into law midway through the Federal Executive Council meeting on Monday, July 29th. And that's all on First News newspaper.
On Daily Independent, the big story: protest starts in Niger as panic gathers momentum nationwide. Don't protest, I'm already meeting your demands, a statement from President Tinubu. Federal government mandates VCs to protect staff, students, infrastructure. Youth table 8-point demand for Tinubu to consider. IGP orders police protection for protesters, invites Adeburuwa. You can find all the details on page 29. Zenith Bank set to raise 290 billion naira capital through rights issues and public offer. NCC orders reactivation of lines affected by NIN/SIM verification issues. We won't allow forces topple Tinubu's government, an assurance from APC state chairman. Tinubu signs 70,000 naira minimum wage bill into law. Akpabio describes gesture as care for workers. Akpabio summons emergency Senate session over protest. Tinubu OK sales of crude oil to Dangote refinery in Naira. Still on the paper, suspended 800% hike in terminal charges. NAMA would have sent airlines to early graves. This is a statement from experts. Says one-way ticket would have hit 500,000 naira. FEC approves purchase of 7,887 dialysis consumables for 7 hospitals. You can find details on page 7, and that's all the news on Daily Independent newspaper.
Really have to applaud them for this step, talking about those who have to go through dialysis.
Yes.
You know that the number of people suffering from one kidney failure after another is really, and then looking at the fact that we don't have them enough in the hospital.
Yeah.
So this is really commendable coming from the Federal Executive Council. Well, let's take a look at another paper, which is the Business Day newspaper. Another Business Day newspaper, we have Naira crude sale ends 20-year OPEC supply market to ease forex pressure. Federal government to save $7.92 billion. Detail found in the paper. Relief as NCC orders telcos to unblock SIM. While Lagos revoke building permits on new projects, you can start reading on the front page and continue on page 30. We still have the signing ceremony that took place in Zenith Bank, and that's all on Business Day newspaper.
On Sporting Sun newspaper, the big story: Liverpool joins race for Osimhen. New coach makes Nigerian top priority. Arsenal back in for ambitious his transfer as PSG pulls out of talks with Napoli. You can find details on page 6. Mbappe gets insane £164,000 car he can't drive. You can find details at the back page. Yamal unfollows TikTok influencer girlfriend after she was shown in a viral video. You can find details at the back page. Man United places €5 million on Eriksen. We have Barca prepares new offer for Dani Olmo. You can find details inside the paper. Bayern welcomes newer Müller, Musiala, Kimmich return. Bayern to empty its coffers to land Wits in 2025. On 2024 Olympics, Ashola blames poor finishing to why Falcons lost to Spain. Dessa debunks Rangers exit rumors. Details can be found on page 6. NFF finally pay Falconets bonuses allowances for 2022 World Cup. Saudi Premier League clubs to pay €10 million for Onyedika. And in Paris 2024, Djokovic defeats tennis legend Nadal in 68 head-to-head clash. You can find details at the back page, and that's all the news on Sporting Sun newspaper.
Well, that's how far we can go on the program this morning. Thank you, Rachel, for doing this.
You're welcome, Sally.
And thank you to our viewers. Thank you to our followers and thank you to every member of the production crew for making this program a success. Please do remember to take care of yourself, stay out of trouble, and be in the right place in the right time. Have a blessed day ahead.